the majority of all of the demand that we saw in 2022 and in 2021, and really going all the way back to 2020, kind of emblematic of this renaissance in silver demand. It literally was probably 95% or greater in silver. The demand for silver has really been game-changing. It has really been the main thrust of what everyone in the industry is looking for. And I think it's very hard to not notice the value found in silver when you are open to looking at it. You know, the mainstream is more or less still completely void of any participation in hard assets. And although I think there will come a time when they will indeed have no choice but to look at what hard assets bring to the table, at this point, what you have seen is a renaissance in silver demand from the pimple on the elephant. The elephant is still fully invested in equities and in bonds and in real estate and in believing that the road to retirement is traditionally paved with traditional assets like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and whatnot. But I will simply say to you that we've seen an expansion, but the real stark difference is the massive demand for silver. One of the things that I found most interesting about 2022 was the United States Mint calling us in June or July of the year. Now, we're one of only 27 authorized resellers in the world, and telling us that they were going to curtail production of gold, eagles, and buffaloes by 50% heading into the second half of the year, which really made no sense to us. And so you had high premiums on gold, eagles, and buffaloes as well, even when the demand was wholly for silver and silver products. So interesting times. There has been a little greater demand lately for gold, but over the last 3 years, Patrick, the demand for silver is off the charts, and it's 4 or 5x of anything that anyone in this industry has ever done. At least 2022 was, and I really don't see much in the way of signs of it abating here in 2023. The real demand will come when the public wakes up, when the elephant wakes up and says, my God, you know, we had a 25% nearly drop in the S&P, or 22 or whatever in the S&P. Last year, the supposed safe part of our portfolio, the bond portfolio, is down 16% on the 10-year Treasury, the biggest drop in the history of the 10-year Treasury. So all in all, that 60-40 split that we see so pervasive in finance here in the West, 60% equities, 40% bonds, was a disaster in 2022. And with the way things are looking now, you know, do we see more of the same or even worse here in 2023? And if we see that, you know, for the first quarter, the first 2 quarters, at what point does the public wake up and say, my God, it's time to pull some money out of the traditional assets? And where do we put it? Well, you don't have to look too far to see the value you find in silver in particular. An asset that is depleting in nature, that has expansion in use cases dramatically in green and digital and in electronic, all of the things that we need silver for, in an asset that is depleting in nature, and has experienced a renaissance in monetary demand. I mean, you have to really try hard to not notice it. So do I expect to see the same type of demand in 23? I actually think there'll be greater demand, because what we've seen over the last couple of years has just been a reawakening of the hard money crowd, a slight expansion of the hard money crowd, but the real big wealth. Granted, we did a couple of orders, both of which were north of $50 million this year from 2 separate people. I mean, that's unheard of. So you are seeing an expansion into the mainstream. But the real mainstream has yet to wake up. And when that happens, I truly do believe, Patrick, that we will see fireworks in price, but also more realistically in inability to source product, because the last couple of years have been really identified by difficulties securing product. While right now is the best product availability I've seen in 36 months, and I attribute that to a few things, namely, during the holidays, I think after 3 years of being locked up and bound up with restrictions, it was the first time, the first Thanksgiving and the first Christmas in 3 years where, really people could travel without restriction or fear. And that, coupled with the 2023 allocations being released at the same time, saw a restocking of the shelves, if you will, where premiums have come down, availability is there. It's the best time to buy product, I think, in the last 3 years, but I truly do believe it's short-lived, because 3 years now, the main issue in this industry has been securing product at reasonable premiums, and premiums have been anything but reasonable in a historical context over the last 3 years. So is this a sweet spot, or is this a sea change? I would argue this is a sweet spot before any type of sea change, and I think the next sea change will be the mainstream waking up and dipping a toe in the water because they have no choice but to pivot away from traditional assets. So I'm very optimistic on what 2023 will bring from a standpoint of business, not so optimistic as what it will bring in terms of economic and geopolitical and social issues. But crazy last few years, and I don't think we've seen anything yet, I guess is the easiest way to say it.